down about my background, and all of that is absolutely true. I met Sylvia actually in payroll, and Sylvia is the one who encouraged me to come on over to EXP, and I absolutely love it here. So thank you. I've been with EXP, it'll be 2 years in March now. I left the big KW to come over to EXP.
A lot of us did that. I was KW myself.
Nice. So I know y'all want to jump into the tax stuff. I've worked in corporate payroll and tax and accounting for a little over 20 years before I decided to go out on my own with my tax business to support you all, to make sure that you all are educated and paying the least amount in taxes. And one of the reasons that I chose the real estate niche is because, one, I'm very familiar with the industry. Like I said, I've been in it for 20 years this month, actually. And during my studies, I found out that real estate agents and attorneys are the biggest group of people who pay the most in taxes. Like, you all really fund the IRS. And it really boils down to, you don't know what you don't know. You all aren't just out here, we aren't out here just, selling houses and making money. We're actually running a business. And when you have a business, you have access to tax deductions and things that employees and 9-to-5 workers don't necessarily have. And I think that's where a lot of the disconnect comes in, and the miseducation. So some of you may be doing it part-time on the side, or if you're doing it full-time, either way, it's a business and you are entitled to those tax deductions. One of the most common things that I see when I'm doing the tax returns are, one, people don't fully understand what's deductible. And if it is ordinary and necessary for your business, then it's a tax deduction. And when you walk out the door, you need to think, before you swipe your card or spend your money, you need to think, can this be used in my business? Because even if it's used partially in your business, part of it can be a tax deduction. So before you make a purchase, that laptop, upgrade that phone, things like that, run into Staples to pick up supplies or whatever, think, is this something that I'm going to use in my business? Because that's where the tax deductions come in. You can deduct just about any and everything that you use on a daily basis if you use it in your business. So that's the key, the main key right there. Just getting in that mindset that I'm not going to just spend some money. I'm not just going to pick up this thing. I'm actually going to get supplies and stuff for my business. I see some questions in the comments, and I'm going to come back to those. But I'm gonna try to hit some of the key points first. So if you can just hold the questions, and I'll come back to those once I get through. But go ahead and drop them in the chat if you have them, and I'll address them if and when we have time. One of the things that I want to, be clear is I'm sharing, tips and tricks here, but I cannot answer like individual personal questions, because one of the things that I've realized just from talking to different people in general, not only realtors, is that people don't realize that taxes aren't one size fit all. And one of the things that I've seen that's real popular, especially in the realtors community, is you need to be an S Corp. Everybody says, you need to be an S Corp. You need to put yourself on payroll. And I've seen people just starting out, putting themselves on payroll and establishing an S Corp when it wasn't necessarily that the time or the best option. And I've seen people who hadn't done anything with their taxes and still being taxed as a sole proprietor, and they're paying an excessive amount of taxes. So That's why I try to hold off on answering, personal questions, because you have to look at each individual scenario separately. And speaking of the S corps and things, there's some confusion around being a sole proprietor and an S corp. One of the questions that I get often is, well, if I put my business name, if I submit the forms to have my broker cut my checks in my business name, would that help me save on taxes? Well, it just depends, because if you are a single member LLC, on the federal level, they consider you a disregarded entity. So there are really no additional tax benefits going from a sole proprietor to a single member LLC, because at that time, you're still filing your business on a Schedule C that's attached to your personal return. That's the profit and loss for a business. It's not separate from your individual return. So it gets kind of tricky, and it's separate when you elect to be taxed as an S corp or a C corp. Now, with that, you get to file a separate tax return. With the S corp, you receive a K1, and that K1 is filed along with your individual tax return. So that's where the separation comes in. And there's also additional tax benefits and things like that with the S corp that you wouldn't get as a single member LLC, because it's a disregarded entity. Also, some common mistakes that I see when processing returns and speaking with people. One of the key things is tracking your income and expenses. If you are not good with documentation and tracking your income and expenses and keeping up with that stuff, the first thing you need to do is hire someone who can keep you organized. Because again, you are running and building a business, and the last thing you want to do is have the IRS knock on your door, send you a letter saying, hey, you owe X amount of dollars and you don't have any documentation, your books are all over the place, and you are sitting there scrambling, trying to explain to the IRS why you don't owe this money. And you may end up owing more if you cannot prove that the deductions that you took or anything like that were valid business deductions. So the first thing that you need to do as a business owner is get organized. I talk to people all the time. They say, well, I can't afford to pay a bookkeeper. And my response to that is, well, you must be able to afford to pay the IRS, because that's what's going to happen. It is better to pay the professional upfront than to have to fight for months and years to try to negotiate a balance with the IRS, because that gets way more expensive than tracking your income and expenses on a monthly basis. The other benefit to tracking your income and expenses on a monthly basis is you should be in touch with your tax professional, your tax accountant, whoever, whatever you call them, at least on a quarterly basis, because as a 1099 contractor, you are required to pay quarterly estimated taxes. How do you know what your quarterly estimated taxes are if you aren't tracking your income and expenses? So it all goes back to being organized, having your business and your personal expenses separated, tracking everything through your business bank account, having an accounting system in place to where at the drop of a dime, you can run a report, you know what your business is doing, and that will help your accountant put in tax strategies before the end of the year, so that you're not caught off guard looking like a deer in headlights on April the 15th, because it gets scary. And I hate delivering those messages with those numbers, because it's horrifying. So I'm gonna scroll through the questions right there. Let's see. What about my hair, nails, and dry cleaning car wash? Okay, so hi Heidi, thanks for that question. The hair, nails, and dry cleaning, that gets tricky. You can do if you're traveling, you're at an EXP conference and you decide to do dry cleaning while you're in a hotel, because you're traveling on business, then that is a tax deduction. But your everyday hair, nails, and dry cleaning, generally, I would have to say no, unless it's you can prove that it was for a business purpose. Just like, clothes. I have on a solid blue shirt, right? If I go in Belk's, JCPenney, or whatever and pick up this shirt, it's not a tax deduction because I can wear this anywhere. I can, it doesn't show that it's for business. The same thing for suits and dresses and things like that. The same suit you might wear to a closing, you can wear it to church, you can wear it to, parents, teacher conference. But the moment you put your logo or your business name on it, it becomes a promotional or marketing item, and therefore it becomes a tax deduction. So it's not so much what you do, but how you do it and how you can document it and prove to the IRS that it was indeed, a business purpose.
So for the cars would, sorry, this is Nick here. So for the cars, if you had a wrap or if you put your logo or something on your car, like how would that apply to what Heidi was saying, like car washes, stuff like that?
Well, you don't even have to have a wrap on your car to take certain deductions for that. You need a car, like that is a necessary business expense. It just depends on how you're going to deduct it. With automobiles, you can take actual expenses or mileage, but you can't take both. If you track mileage, then you can't take the car wash because that's an actual expense. And a lot of times, just depending on how much driving you're doing, how much business you're doing, if you're using your personal car, then mileage may be the way to go. If you have like 10,000 miles, for the year, the rate is 50.575 cents, for each mile. So that's a deduction of $5,750, for mileage alone. Mileage is a huge deduction. So you want to make sure that you're tracking that. You want to track your business and your personal miles, because you have to identify, if you're using your personal card, the percentage amount used for personal and the percentage amount used for business, because you can only deduct the business portion. But if you use actual expenses, yes, you can deduct your car washes as well. But again, you will have to determine, the percentage.
What kind isn't it, Christy, isn't it with your car that you get either or? You either get mileage or you get the payment, the maintenance, all that. You can't do both.
Correct. You cannot do both.
And I found out over time, guys, the mileage usually pays off as a better deduction, usually.
From my experience, that's what I've seen, but it depends on where you are in your business and how you have your business set up. If you got your car in your business name, if you lease it in your business name, then you can actually deduct the lease payments and things like that, the actual expense. So it just depends on how much business you have. Like someone doing it part-time may not have as much mileage as someone who's doing it full time. But yeah, like Bill said, in my experience, I've seen like a larger deduction for mileage. Just total up your payments over the 12 months, your maintenance and things like that, and weigh the options. Now the only thing is, the first year you put your car in business, if you use if you use the actual expenses, you have to use actual expenses throughout the life of the car while you're using it for that business. But if you start out using mileage, then you can switch, depending on which gives you the better benefit for that particular year.
And is there any app that you recommend that really will track that mileage good? I mean,
Yes, I use QuickBooks. I'm a
No, tracking the mileage, like when I get in the car, like, do I have to look at the odometer all the time, or is there some app that will really track it well?
Nope, that's what I was saying. I use QuickBooks. I'm a QuickBooks Pro advisor as well. And I absolutely love the tools that QuickBooks have put in place because it's kind of like a one-stop shop.
Okay, I use QuickBooks, but I don't know, they have a mileage tracker, so when I get in the car, it's going to track my miles?
Yes, there's a link on, I mean, it's not a link, it's a what you call little widget on the app. If you download QuickBooks, there's a widget on the app that allows you to track your mileage, and you can turn it on. It'll automatically track when you get in your car, and then you could just sort your.
Yeah, Heidi, I use that app actually, and it's pretty easy to use. But my question was, what can you track? Like, for example, if I'm driving to a closing, do I track the miles there and back home? Like, is that, or do I just track one way?
No, you track the miles to and from.
Okay, and so even like going to the store. So like, for example, if I went to Target or something, or I went to Home Depot and I went to go pick up something, I went and shopped for some personal items, but I did go also pick up a sign at Home Depot. Would that also count? Could I count that as my mileage?
Just the business mileage. If you go to Lowe's, get the sign, go to Home Depot, get the sign, and then that's your business mileage. Any personal cannot be deducted.
Okay.
Separate receipts, Nick.
Yep. And you can also take pictures and upload your receipts into QuickBooks as well. Like, they have really come a long way with being the one-stop shop.
Baritza, have you heard of Strat Tax?
I have not. What is that?
Oh, it's an app that does the same thing. I've been using it for the past 2-3 years, and at the end of the year, it itemizes them actually very well for me. So that's another one, Heidi, if you're interested, take a look at.
Okay.
What's it called?
Stride Tax.
Can your accountant log in and do what they need to do?
That I don't know, because I usually just have all my taxes balanced at the end of the year at tax time. That's how.
Okay.
So, because for a while I was doing I had a W-2 job as well, so I just did it that way. But this coming year, there should be no W-2 on their experience, so I may be coming to see you.
Okay.
Bertha, do you meet with your clients like quarterly to kind of see how things are progressing with them?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I do. Okay. Let's see, what kind of proof receipts are needed to keep on file? All of them.
Well, so my question there was more so because I was working on this a little while ago, and so you're saying you can upload pictures of receipts, but I had some people tell me that I needed like actual physical copies too in certain instances. What's the rules regarding those?
Electronic receipts are just as good.
Okay. But and even a picture of it is fine as well.
Yes, as long as it's clear, you can see the date and all that kind of stuff. If you have meals with clients, you want to write on the receipt somewhere the purpose of the meeting, who was at the meeting, identifying it as a business expense, snap the picture and upload it right into your software. You can do that in QuickBooks. And another good one, who Sylvia dropped here, Hurdler is good for that as well.
Awesome. Okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of options for tracking mileage and expenses and stuff like that. But I recommend my clients use QuickBooks for everything because it's so much easier. I'm a person who likes convenience and a one-stop shop. So instead of having 5 and 6 different apps hopping from over here, trying to remember do that over there, and I like a one-stop shop. Let's see, if you are sole proprietor, gasoline will be an expense as well. Yes, sole proprietors and single member LLCs, if you have a business, you are entitled to those, to the same deductions. Natalie asks, what if you have a car for business use only and a personal car for personal? That's even better because it's easier to track, you know, your business use. If you have, and the IRS looks at stuff like that as well. If you have one car, say you have one car and you say you are using that one car for 100%, you know, business, you're taking all the mileage, all the expenses and, you know, things like that. That's a huge red flag to the IRS because they're going to say, if this is your only car, how are you getting around, you know, for your personal stuff? How are you taking the kids to soccer and basketball and stuff like that? So if you can totally separate your personal and your business, that's great. I know that's not always, you know, realistic, but if you can do that, that's perfect.
I have a question. For years, I carried 2 credit cards, one for personal, one for business. So at the end of the year, I can go through 12 months of my business credit card, and it's pretty easy to, you know, separate all my business expenses because they're all on one card.
Well, let me just tell you something I learned the hard way. I use QuickBooks. Put your credit cards in there and reconcile them every month. If you wait till the end of the year, you will forget everything. Don't think that you're going to remember, because see, I thought I was going to remember. Oh, I know what that is. I know what this is. No. So I have separate credit cards for my business, separate for my personal. I put everything, all the charges in there, and I reconcile everything. I give it to my CPA every quarter. They check it out by the end of the year. That's what, like, no surprises, right?
Yeah, I started doing by quarter 2 years ago just because I got so busy.
Bill, you're cutting in
Ways
and out.
have a business credit card. I agree with you. I guess my major point was have a business card and a personal card. It's a really easy way to separate your expenses.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. And I recommend, like I said, I think I mentioned it earlier, categorize those transactions and reconcile them at a minimum of quarterly, because that's how you catch your errors. That's how you identify what taxes you need to pay quarterly and things like that. Waiting till the end of the year, a lot of times you get busy and you just don't get around to it, and then you dreading it. It's not done properly, and when it's not done properly, it affects your taxes. What you hand over to the tax accountant, it should be accurate and up to date, because if there's any errors in there, then it's gonna throw off your taxes. They can be overstated, understated, or anything, and you really don't want that in case of an audit. And I know I mentioned audits, you know, a lot of times, but the IRS has they're going to increase their rate of audits. They're actually hiring more people to perform these audits. And I was just thinking about, you know, all the money that they, you know, gave out this year. It's like, okay, how are they going to recoup this money? It's going to be in taxes in one way, shape, form, another. They may increase eventually. They're going to get those audits and they're going to hit you with those fines and fees and interest and penalties and all of that. So it's best to stay ready so you don't have to get ready. Let's see, should we have an LLC to start out as a new rep versus an S Corp? That's one of those questions that will have to be answered on an individual basis, because I look at it like this. When you're starting out as an LLC, that's okay. The S Corp should be like a promotion or a graduation, right? Your business has grown to the point where you need to see if there are other tax strategies that your business can benefit from. If you're not making a lot of money when you first start out, then an S Corp may not be the best for you at that time, because remember, with an S Corp, you are getting more expenses. You got 2 returns, there's different requirements, and you have to put yourself on payroll. You have to pay yourself a reasonable salary. So if you're not making enough to pay yourself a reasonable salary as an S Corp, then there's no need to put it on an S Corp. I say maximize your deductions as an LLC until you have to go to your accountant and say, hey, my tax bill is creeping up there. What else can I do? Or what else do I need to do to make sure that I'm paying the least amount in taxes?
Caritza, great information. Thank you for sharing that. I'm curious, because I started an LLC.
Yeah, you're going in and out, Dwayne. I hear you saying my name, but that's it.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me now? I'll type it in the chat.
Is it me or is it just Dwayne?
I can hear you.
Webinar freeze?
You can hear me?
Yeah, I was gonna say I hear you loud and clear.
Can you all hear me?
Okay.
Carissa, yeah, we can hear you, but your video did freeze up, so it might be on your end.
Dwayne, try asking now.
Okay, so my question is, I started an LLC with an S Corp election. What are your thoughts on that, as far as kind of getting started in the business, and as far as it being an advantageous way for me to save on taxes? LLC with an S Corp election.
Hey, Carissa, you're muted.
Yeah, I think I got kicked out for a second and then it brought me back in. So Dwayne, I didn't hear any of your question.
Okay, no worries. So I was just asking if you start up an LLC with an S Corp election as opposed to just a single member LLC or S Corp.
I'm losing you again.
Try typing it in the chat.
I'm gonna type it in the chat.
Type it in chat. And in the meantime, when you type that in, I'm going to ask Jennifer. She was reindeer the other day. Jen, what's on?
I don't know if it's.
There you go. Now we can see it. Yeah, keep talking.
I didn't hear the question.
You were a reindeer the other day. What do you have? What are you, an elf today?
I don't know. It's a hat. It's another Christmas hat.
Okay. Well, I like the spirit.
I want to know where you get all these hats, Jen. That's my question.
Well, I've collected them over the years. I think I have one for every day in December. So that makes sad.
No,
good job.
Awesome.
Okay, Dwayne has his question. What are your thoughts on starting an LLC with an S Corp election?
Yes, Dwayne, it's the same thing that I just explained. An S Corp is an S Corp. You're just basically notifying the IRS that you want to be taxed as an S Corp. It just depends on where you are in your business, and I can't necessarily tell you which is better because I don't know your particular situation.
Well, let's set up a meeting.
Yeah, let's make sure that you type in your contact information for everyone, Caritza, so they have a question, they can contact you. And if you guys need an accountant, we provide you with a great accountant today.
Thank you. All right, Bill, I'll turn it back over to you. Thank you all. This was fun. I enjoyed speaking with you all.
Awesome. So I'm just going to review some stuff right here. You're going to track some mileage. Stick with QuickBooks. If not, there's Stride Tax or hurdler.com. If you become an S Corp, make sure you pay yourself. That's important. Your accountant will tell you what they consider a reasonable income. Okay. Tracking income and business expenses, do it quarterly and do it on QuickBooks. If you can, hire a bookkeeper, that's what you do. Make sure you pay your quarterly taxes. Then you won't get any penalties at the end of the year. When you're tracking your mileage, make sure you separate the business and personal. When you're tracking your expenses, one of the easy things might be to do is have a separate credit card and make sure you use it separately. Don't commingle the funds. So at this point, if anyone else has any questions, please feel free to speak up now.
Paritza, another question. This is Dwayne again. Do you assist with the setup of LLCs and other entities like that?
No, I do not assist with the setup because depending on the setup, you need operating agreements and accountable plans and things like that. And that's more along the legal lines. And I've pretty much learned to stay in my lane when it comes to that. Once it's set up and you got everything in place, I can help you with the taxes on the back end. Some people do, I don't. I focus primarily on the taxes and the business.
Awesome, thank you.
Now, if you already have your LLC set up and everything, and it's time to be taxed as an S Corp, I do help with that part. But all the other stuff that kind of border the lines of legal documents, I let the attorneys do what they do.
Hey, Dwayne.
I was
just pointing out, Heidi, sorry, but Eileen and Natalie Miles in the chat both recommending incfile.com for an easy way to set up your LLC. And this is something that I learned too. If you do need help setting up the LLC, it's a piece of advice I got from a partner of mine, which is that you don't always have to set up your LLC in North Carolina or in the state that you're in. There are better states to file an LLC for tax purposes. And that might be something you can look into. Like, for example, I have one now in Delaware because they have like the least restriction.
That's why I did mine.
Yep, exactly. Delaware is like where everybody files. So so incfile.com.
Hey, Chris, when you're establishing, like, let's say now at this time of year, you are applying for your, you get your EIN number. You are filling out your paperwork, with the IRS that you're going to be like an S Corp or something. They ask you, I think, when that was established or something. Like, is there any way that you can do the date or something so that 2020 like would be counted for that? Like you could file under that for 2020, or is the date the day you file it?
I'm not 100% sure on that because I know they recently changed with the EIN and stuff like that. You can, I had to check with the state if you can backdate the LLC and stuff. I'm not sure about the EIN. I had to check on that.
Jennifer, do you have that paper? What's that form? Do you know what I'm talking about? Because see, one of my team members was asking me this question the other day, and I said I would get the answer, and then I forgot to go do that. And now we're on this call talking about it. Jennifer, do you have the paper? What was it?
I don't have it in front of me, but it was when I was applying for the EIN number.
Okay, yeah, okay. All right, so you say I should just check with the state, or isn't that federal?
Yeah, that's federal. Yeah, I misunderstood what you were saying.
Okay. All right, thank you.
And Caritza, Sylvia is also asking if you could let everyone know, because Dwayne was just asking too, if you could just let everyone know kind of like the scope of your services, what you do, how we could reach out to you and that stuff.
Yes, I do tax prep for individuals and business owners. I do tax planning, tax resolution, and bookkeeping.
Awesome. And I see you put your website and you have your email there. So anybody that wants to reach out, you can you go to her website or send her an email on there as well. Any other questions too, because I'll mention this too before we wrap up, guys, that if you're in the Facebook group, and again, that's the Real Estate Agents Facebook group where we have some of these recordings. I'm going to be uploading the recordings for some of the previous calls into the group. So Caritza, if you want to join that group as well, I'd love to, if you're not in there already, we'll be uploading all these videos. But as you guys might have seen as well, I've been uploading all the recordings that Bill and I did earlier in the year, and we showed all those videos. I put them all onto YouTube. They're all being put onto YouTube and then putting into the group. So I just put the link there as well to like the playlist. So if you guys wanted to go back and review, or maybe you missed a week and you want to go check that out, two places, the Facebook group, or you can go check it out on YouTube directly with all the videos there. So I just want to point that out. And like I mentioned, this one's been recorded as well. So we're going to start kind of in reverse posting these in that group. So everyone can, if you miss a week or something, they'll be in there. Does that make sense, everybody? Sound good?
Sure.
Okay, guys, a few updates. If you haven't been watching the stock, it hit $72 yesterday. That's pretty cool.
Woo-woo.
Keep acquiring the stock, guys. Keep acquiring it.
That was a nice
thing-
thing to see, Bill.
Yeah, it was a good thing to see. Absolutely. So the next 2 weeks we're off. We have Christmas, coming up next week. So we're off then. And the week after is New Year's Eve. And